Shellie Pfohl was appointed by our president, Barack Obama, in February 2010 to serve as the executive director of the President's Council on Fitness, Sports, and Nutrition within the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. As executive director, Ms. Pfohl is responsible for developing the vision, strategy, and goals of the council in consultation with its members and directing the organization's daily operations. In addition, Ms. Pfohl leads the council's effort to support the First Lady, Michelle Obama's national Let's Move initiative to solve the childhood obesity epidemic within a generation. I want you to know that NEA is a supporter of the First Lady's Let's Move campaign, and we have been right there with her side by side, helping to get gardens in schools and helping to bring farmers and fresh produce into the schools as well. So with no further ado, let me turn this over to Shellie.
Well, it's truly my honor to be here among you, and congratulations. I know you're off and running on a great conference, and I'm just so honored to be asked to be here and share a little bit with you. I'm going to share a little bit about the President's Council, but I'm really going to focus on Let's Move, okay? We know that, probably about 2% of our kids are really athletic, are really participating in athletics. So we want to really hit, at the bigger population, that 98% of kids, and provide, and we know assessment's important, but assessment for me is only important in that it would help our kids and adults, for that matter, do better in certain areas. So if it's flexibility or cardiovascular strength and endurance, et cetera, that's really, to me, what should be going on. So I'm really going to talk about Let's Move. As Roxanne said, the President's Council, we're one of several agencies within federal government that are really supporting Let's Move and the First Lady's initiative to solve the problem of childhood obesity within a generation. It's a big task. It's a big task. Some of you have heard these statistics, but 1 in 3 of American children are overweight or obese. By the way, if we look at our adult population, it's about 2 out of 3. More than 30% of the people, and this is adults in those states, are overweight or obese. We've got a problem in this country, right? Now, if I showed you the diabetes slides, and I think I have one more, this is going to show diabetes and obesity. It pretty much mirrors it. And a lot of us are impacted by diabetes. We either have diabetes or we have someone in our family. It's a real issue. These are the symptoms. This is what happens when we're not active and we're not eating right. So for me, it's all about getting upstream. And how are we as adults and as our children, how are we being more physically active or not? And how are we eating more nutritiously or not? So I like to call physical activity and nutrition positive gateway behaviors. You know what I'm saying? We're talking about gateway behaviors. Positive gateway behaviors, physical activity and nutrition. If we look at our human capital and how healthy our kids are going to be, if I had more time, I would tell you how closely aligned physically fit kids are with academic performance and how it relates to positive physical activity relates to lowering behavioral problems, and that kids are less likely to drop out of school, less likely to become pregnant, less likely to do many of the things that we wish that they wouldn't do, or in some cases would do from a positive standpoint. So some of the research is stronger in some of these areas than others, but we're continuing to look at that and those positive relationships. But make no mistake, those correlations. How did we get here? Again, we could have a long discussion on, and we could talk about what? Technology. So we've engineered physical activity out of our society. So those are some big issues. Is it too late? I hope not. I hope not. And you hear some of the statistics that, for example, that kids born today may have a lower life expectancy, may not live as long as their parents. Can you believe that? For the first time in human history, our life expectancy might be going the opposite direction. It's scary. So you think about the quality of life that our kids are headed into. This becomes a real issue. It's an economic issue as well. And we think about the numbers are ever increasing, the healthcare costs for kids and adults related to obesity. It's an economic issue from a healthcare cost standpoint that affects all of us. Because guess what? If we weren't spending money on healthcare costs, we might could get some of those raises, right? We might could feel it in our own pocketbooks in a positive way. So it absolutely impacts all of us from a human standpoint and from an economic standpoint. Obviously, Mrs. Obama is at the forefront. She took this on immediately in the new administration. She knows the importance. She saw it in her own family, as she will tell you, in terms of talking to the pediatrician for her girls, and looking at ways that she could help her family be more healthy as a busy mom, as a working mom. And so she really took this on as, look, we've got to speak to people and real people every day and the real barriers that we're facing in this country. A year ago, February, okay, we just had our anniversary in February, Mrs. Obama kicked off Let's Move. At the same time, President Obama appointed or commissioned, if you will, the Childhood Obesity Task Force. Okay, and so what he said, all you federal agencies, you got 90 days to tell us what you're doing as it relates to childhood obesity. So we need an inventory of everything that's going on as it relates to childhood obesity, along with our best recommendations on how we should move forward in this area. Okay? So 90 days, we had that report. We had that report, and now there are about 70 recommendations, if you will, objectives for moving forward. And these relate, of course, to both nutrition as well as physical activity. Let's Move was born. Let's Move continues to grow. You'll see the different areas of Let's Move cities and towns. Chefs Move to School. Anybody have some chefs that you're working with in your community? So Chefs Move to Schools, where chefs are teaming up with school folks to help get more and better nutritious foods into the school lunch programs, et cetera. Let's Move Outside. We have what we're terming now as nature deficit disorder. Nature deficit disorder, because kids don't go outside. They don't understand outside. I talk to kids in inner city Chicago who've never seen a starry night. Think about that. They've never experienced a starry night. But how do we immerse kids in outdoor parks, urban parks? And some of those can take place at the school site as well. How are we opening up our school sites and doing some joint use agreements where we have facilities, where we have open space and play space, so that kids can be active outside in a safe environment? So I know who you represent, by the way, and so whether you're a security person or a maintenance person or a school food service person or a bus driver. By the way, my grandmother drove school bus for 18 years. So yeah, in Dubuque, Iowa. So I get all kind of stories from her. She's 88 now and still going strong, but she got some good stories from when she drove bus. My sister is a teacher's aide as well, and so I know where you come from. I know you're the glue that keeps schools running, and so you are every bit as much of the solution as anyone else that is on this great journey to turn the tide on obesity. But not only what you do during your workday, but how you're able to manage, if you will, your families. How you're able to immerse yourself in the community as leaders and to be outspoken proponents on what needs to happen in our communities as well. That's equally important. And what we're asking all of us to do in your school, in your community, at your workplace, whether that's in the garage or in the school or wherever it is, how are we changing the culture in which we live and work? And that's what it's going to take, a cultural shift. There's nothing easy about it. So some of the things that are happening, we talked about the Chefs Move to Schools. How many of you are working on the Healthier U.S. Schools Challenge? Anybody familiar with that, with USDA? Healthier U.S. Schools Challenge, and it combines both the nutrition pieces and the school lunch programs, as well as physical activity. So that comes out from USDA, and there's actually some little monetary, not a ton, but some monetary award to those as well. And you can move up the ranks to gold, silver, or silver, bronze, silver, gold, et cetera. That is a wonderful program that all of you can be involved. Again, school nurses and the like can all be a part of getting that U.S. Healthier School Challenge. It's a big promotion of the First Ladies. Thank you all for helping to pass the Healthy, Hunger-Free Kids Act. It is so important. On the physical activity side, we're working with the Department of Education on the Elementary and Secondary Education Act. And so that, and we're making sure that physical education is part of the whole child, okay? And believe me, it hasn't been. So until a few weeks ago, physical education was not written in there, if you can believe it, in terms of reaching the whole child, okay? That's incongruent with what we're trying to do here, right? And what we know. So we know that quality physical education in schools is critically important. After-school programming for physical activity is important. Giving kids breakfast where it's needed is important, okay? And we know, we see, I'm sure you see, I know my grandmother saw, she knew what kids were getting on the bus and didn't get breakfast, perhaps couldn't afford meals at home. And the only meals that they got were at school. So some of it is education. Some of it is really advocating. Some of it, and part of this isn't the school's responsibility, it's all of our responsibility about how do we get to parents and help them understand. I know there are parents, I talk to physicians all the time who tell me, look, I know this child is overweight or obese or is pre-diabetic, but the parent doesn't get it, doesn't want to hear it, or doesn't see it. So it's an uphill battle. And that's why it takes all of us. That is why all of us have to be in this together. So little by little, step by step, that ripple effect where we can turn the tide and where it becomes the norm. It used to be the norm that we walked or biked to school. It's not the norm anymore. Just the opposite is the norm. So it's swinging the pendulum back the other way. So again, there's nothing easy about it, and that educational process is so critically important. But even those of us that know, I would say a lot of us know what is good foods and bad foods, so to speak. And by the way, I don't believe in good foods and bad foods. I just believe in moderation. Okay, because don't tell me I'm not going to eat some ice cream once in a while, right? So I just believe in moderation, okay, and portion control, right? I struggle with that one once in a while too, right? But it's all of these things coming together. Some of it is educational, of parents just not understanding content of foods, et cetera. But even that we don't know, some of it becomes psychological and behavioral. And how do we break out of those patterns? So again, all the more reason to make sure we're including the school nurses, perhaps the school psychologists, and so forth, counselors, where needed, where we have cases where we really need to reach out to kids that are struggling in this area, okay? So thank you for that question. It's a great question. Again, what this map shows is another area of Let's Move called Let's Move Cities and Towns. And we have now 560 and growing cities and towns who have signed on. And what that means is the mayor, supported by a whole group of individuals such as yourselves, has said, we're going to become a Let's Move city or a Let's Move town. And in doing so, we're going to agree to do these 4 things in the next year. And that means one thing out of each of the 4 pillars of Let's Move. And I would give you all a website called letsmove.gov, letsmove.gov, G-O-V. And it will tell you all of the different ways that you can impact your school and your community and your colleagues and our kids, okay? So whether that's access to affordable fruits and vegetables, whether that's helping to educate parents, and how do we do that? There's some tools on there. So what a great way to maybe engage your school board, your superintendent, your mayor of your town to say, hey, why don't we become a Let's Move city or town, okay? So this is really growing rampantly, this Let's Move City and Town piece. Because you know what? It has to be sustainable. So we've got to be doing things at the local level. And we know from a school-based standpoint, in terms of making changes in schools, the authority is at the local level. So those changes, how much PE kids get is determined by your principals and your superintendents, period. It's not going to come down from the Department of Education, ever. So it's local. Some of it's money. Some of it is just making sure I would suggest to you that some of it is just about scheduling. Now, we're not going to change the school day, but I can give you principals after principal who will tell you, this is what I did with my school day to make sure my kids got PE, maybe not every day, but this is what I did to make sure my kids got PE, and guess what? Our scores not only didn't go down, our test scores went up. Because everybody's concerned about test scores, right? Oh, yeah. It's all about test scores, all right? And I know that when we talk about No Child Left Behind and so forth, it really put us on the path to be focusing on test scores. By the way, No Child Left Behind left a lot of kids on their behinds, okay? And I'm not shy in telling you that because it's the truth. It really is the truth. And I don't deny, we've got to look at our competitiveness. We've got to look at those test scores. I would tell you, you want your test scores up, get the kids fit and get them fed nutritiously. That's how you increase your test scores. It's one of the ways. And that by taking away from that physical activity time, from taking away from recess, is counterproductive. If you want well-rounded kids who are performing well in the classroom and in life. I believe that wholeheartedly. We have a long way to go. We're making progress. We see progress. I see success stories every day, and that's another thing that's on Let's Move site are the success stories. There may be folks that are like you in a community like yours that you could take some examples from that might be ideas that could work in your school setting or in your district or in your community. So I love seeing some of these examples. So I know some of you are working on school meals. And some of you are looking at, are working with, because I heard you talking earlier about how are we working with farmers to bring fresh fruits and vegetables to schools. What I've learned in talking to the food service folks is that, yeah, we want to buy locally, but the farmers, the barriers that they're seeing are that they have to get inspected in order for you to buy from them, and the costs for those inspections are inhibitive, right? If they're paying $500 or $1,000 per crop so that they can provide you fresh strawberries or fresh whatever, it's prohibitive. So those are some of the things that Department of Agriculture, and there's a whole new food financing initiative going on now where there's going to be grants going out to fill our food deserts, as we call them, food deserts, and that means that there aren't fresh fruits and vegetables available in communities at stores available to families. So our goal, of course, is to get back to making physical activity the norm. And both from a physical activity standpoint as well as physical education. And that's different, you know. Physical activity is just how we practice what we learn in physical education. Now, I'll be the first to tell you that I think the quality of physical education in this country needs to improve, okay? So I don't want more of a bad thing. I want more of a good thing. Now, let me just tell you one thing that we're doing. One thing that we're doing that, again, you may have heard the First Lady talk about, and it's called the Million Pallet Challenge. And this is any physical activity you want to do, whether it's walking or jumping on a pogo stick or doing cartwheels across your front lawn. I don't care as long as you're moving. PALA stands for Presidential Active Lifestyle Award. 6-week program, 5 days a week, 30 minutes for adults, 60 minutes for kids. Okay, you guys get off easy. This is what the Centers for Disease Control suggest for us as adults, 30 minutes a day, and it doesn't even have to be all at once. Could be 3 10-minute increments. When you get done, you get a certificate signed by our co-chairs, who are Drew Brees and Dominique Dawes. That's our co-chairs for the President's Council. By the way, the First Lady has completed her PALA. She has done it. She leads by example. She has done hers. So millionpalachallenge.org, millionpalachallenge.org, and that'll tell you how to get signed up. What's cool is you can sign your school up. So you can get a code for your school, and then you can email out or pass out to all of your school folks that code, and so everybody will roll up underneath your code. So you'll be able to tell at the end how many people participated and how many minutes they did. And you'll be, again, what a great thing to be able to share back, okay? Might be something, again, you want to take to your parent-teacher organization as well. So would love your help on that as a way to get started, right? You got to start somewhere. This is the Get Off the Couch program, all right? 6 weeks, 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week. What I want you to realize is I understand that you're not just in our schools, but your parents, you're in our communities, you're community leaders, you're volunteering, and all of those areas are ways and places that you can be significant in this movement. So imagine a culture where children today will be healthy adults, that we create new norms. That's a carrot, by the way, in case you weren't sure. Yeah. For their bodies, for their minds, and for their souls. So let's move. And I wanted to have at least one slide that really was a little bit more specific about what you can do. And this is not exhaustive. I think we could come up with lots more ways, once again. But everybody's involved with this. Everybody is involved with this. So if you've got a playground right now that's not safe, you need to raise that up. Raise that up. Raise the flag. And sometimes your school might not have money, but that's where those joint use agreements come in. So maybe the rec department has some money, or has some, there's more play space money sometimes. There's pots of money that we don't even know about, right? It's just finding out where they are and who has them. There are grants coming out. Some of you maybe in your community you have a Communities Putting Prevention to Work grant, CPPW, Communities Putting Prevention to Work grant. Coming out soon is kind of the next phase of that, called Community Transformation Grants. Community Transformation Grants. And this is about the whole community. They're coming out from Centers for Disease Control, as I understand it. What a wonderful thing for you to work with on, again, with your community. Maybe with your Let's Move Cities and Towns committee, and to go after one of those grants. Somebody's got to get the money, right? Might as well be you all. School gardens. Anybody got a school garden? Yes, awesome. Have they been fabulous? The stories I hear about the school and community gardens is fabulous. And the kids, you know, just getting their hands in the dirt, number one, understanding how things grow. I mean, again, I spent 20 years in North Carolina. Now, I had kids that could tell me what a can of corn looked like, but not an ear of corn. Didn't know what an ear of corn was. I mean, it was amazing. What a wonderful thing. And certainly you see the First Lady with her garden and what she's done in some of the schools, but what it teaches the kids. And you know, parents were saying, oh, my kid is never going to eat that. Mm-hmm. Yes, they do. They grow it. And it's amazing. And then you're helping them, those of you that cook, you know, you help them learn how to cook that stuff, right? Or make something with it. And again, not my department. But you know, those fresh fruits and vegetables. And then take it a step further, where I've seen some of the older, like the middle school kids, where they'll take their produce to the local farmer's market. And then they got to figure out, how do I market my produce? You know, how do I make signs? And then I'm going to sell it. No, now I got to do math, because I got to make change for these people that are buying. So think about how it comes into all of our other subject areas of science and growing things, agriculture. And then the math side of things with, okay, I've got to figure out how many yards of dirt I need and all this stuff. I mean, you can build in all of the core subjects into what we're doing. Same thing with physical activity. When we talk about how many steps we're running and how many steps in a mile and, you know, how many, you know, steps to the moon and all this stuff. I mean, you can build in all of these areas. So those of you that are working in the classroom as teachers' aides and so forth, these are all great things for you to build in. Also think about little brain breaks, or instant recess as we call it, in the classroom. I'm telling you, it'll go a long way to helping kids be on task if you give them a little 3-minute brain break that you can tie into the lessons that you're doing. You know, you're teaching about the solar system today. Well, why not get kids up rotating around the sun and pretending they're planets? You know, there are all ways to tie in to what kids are learning. Educating and engaging parents. Again, this is a tough one, but it takes all of us. So tie into your cooperative extension folks and to other, your health educators and your school nurses and so forth. Tie into our food nutrition service folks that know and understand this stuff and know how we can reach parents. Be a community leader yourself. Be a school leader. Technology. We got some technology folks in here. I love the technology folks. Got some technology folks, okay? What are our kids into? Technology, right? So we're seeing more and more technology being brought not into the classroom, but to the gym, to the physical education programs, to after-school programming. So kind of like, you know, we're seeing all the Wii and the Connect and the, you know, the new, the stuff like that. These are some of the types of things that we can also engage kids in at school from a more group standpoint, okay? A lot of these things are one-on-one, which isn't conducive in the school environment. We need things that are for an entire class or a gym full of kids. But that technology can really help engage kids. Heart rate monitors and helping kids understand how their heart works. And, you know, what is this thing showing here? And again, now you're doing math again. And, you know, it just ties it all in. So that technology, and so you technology folks, and, you know, I've talked to a lot of physical educators. A lot of them aren't real savvy on the technology. So the technology folks need to help them. They need to bring them along a little bit. So be creative, and this is where I talked about how do we bring more physical activity into the classroom. So here's the bottom line. Here's the bottom line. We need to move for healthier people in healthier schools, for more and better physical education in schools, for healthier choices at schools and in our restaurants and at our homes, for safer routes to schools so we can walk or bike, for more walkable communities, for more community gardens and community centers where kids can learn and be active safely, for healthier workplaces for you and for all of us, and for quality programs for older adults as well, let's not forget. And we need to move for a healthier America. Thank you so much for allowing me to be here, and good luck with the rest of your conference.